Hi friends! In this episode we'll be talking about preparing your coop and chickens for winter. We'll talk about the changing nutritional needs of your birds as they molt and how to meet those needs, some options for easier water, requirements for their shelter and bedding, and the big question, heat lamps. Should they be used or not? I'll also share my strategy to avoid a winter egg drought and touch on some ways to store eggs for winter use. Let's dive in! Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goat-Wise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey there! Do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up at bit.ly/getgoatwiseinsider. Here's what's happening on the ranch. The snow is mostly gone and the temperatures are dropping. Lots of single-digit days this week. The fence jobs are finished for the year, and we got back to work on our building project. Now we pray for a few more weeks of decent weather so we can keep making progress on the build. If we can finish framing, get the roof on, and cover the west end wall, we should be good even if it snows, because the side walls are deep inside a 10-foot overhang, and we rarely get weather from the east, so we should be protected enough to keep working through the winter. I told the kids if we get it enclosed, we'll put the big Christmas tree up in there because we haven't put it up in 2 years and they miss it. So that's our goal, even if it's a bit lofty. The goats are doing really well. The does are on hay, the thin ones that raise twins are gaining, and the rest are maintaining, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want right now. The kids are growing fast. They're on an all-you-can-eat hay buffet. No grain, of course. In years past, the meat kids would all be going to the sale in the next couple weeks depending on weather for travel, but we're doing something a little different this year. We're working towards direct marketing the goat meat. So behind the scenes, I'm working hard on getting that going, and we'll just have to see where that goes. We are okay with holding the kids until spring if we have to, because then we can hit the high Easter market, regardless of whether that's direct to consumer or if they actually need to go to the sale barn. And it may be split. Some may be direct to consumer and some may go to the sale barn. So we're just going to have to ride that out and see what happens. We're also doing a lot of winterizing right now. Stacy drained all the troughs, so those are empty and good for winter now. And we're cleaning up the barn, which includes setting up the chain link kennel in the barn for the chickens. We'll move them up there once we get snow. That way they have lots of space and aren't stuck in the chicken trailer all the time. I get a lot of questions about how we handle winter with chickens, so let's talk more about that. First of all, my view is that we need to let them do what nature intended. A lot of people use artificial lighting to keep them laying, but I don't think that is worth it, and here's why. Chickens molt for a reason. They need to stop laying, let their body rest and recover, and prepare for another laying cycle. If we're always forcing them to keep laying like they do in commercial layer operations, they burn out fast, and it's not the best way to treat your chickens that you want to last at least a few years, hopefully. So we choose not to do that. That's a decision you're going to have to make for your chickens. Our very first year that we had chickens, we had them in the chicken trailer. I've talked about the chicken trailer before. It's basically a 2-horse trailer that we converted into a chicken coop. Well, knowing what a horse trailer is, it was cold. It's just a metal trailer, it's going to be cold. So I was really concerned about the temperature, and I felt like we needed to have heat lamps. We were also concerned about fire risk, so rather than putting the heat lamps in with the chickens, we put them in the tack compartment, which was directly below where they roost, and the heat radiated up to where they were spending their nights. The problem with the supplemental heat was that the chickens didn't feather up as much as they would have without the heat lamps. So then when it got really cold, they weren't prepared for that. This happens whether you have the heat lamps directly on them or radiating like we did. So ultimately, we decided that the heat lamps were expensive to run and they were counterproductive. So we have not used heat lamps since that first year, and our production has been really, really good. It's important to choose the right breeds in the first place if you live in a cold area. You don't want anything with a really big comb. However, even breeds with large combs, like white leghorns, can do very well in a cold climate if the conditions are right. So let's talk about what needs to happen in the coop. Humidity is the enemy of your chickens. That's what causes frostbite when the temperature drops. If your coop is humid, they will likely get frostbite no matter the size of their comb. How do we keep the humidity down? Great question. An ideal shelter has good ventilation where moisture can escape, but where wind cannot blow directly in, so it's draft free. To keep it dry, you need to do a few things. First, don't put their water inside the coop. Leave it out in the run. Next, you need to clean the coop regularly and get the wet manure out, or use a deep bedding system. The deep bedding system is when you put a deep layer of shavings, and then about weekly you go in there and you fluff it with the manure in it and everything. You fluff it up, and then you put down another layer of shavings. What it does is it creates a composting environment right in the coop. So it deals with the manure and moisture and also generates some heat. That compost ultimately is great for the garden, but it may need to compost a little further before you use it. When chickens are heading into winter, a lot of them may be molting. This changes their nutritional requirements. It takes a lot of protein and energy to grow feathers. So we support their molt with extra protein. That can be in the form of mealworms, meat, sunflower seeds, scrambled eggs, or you could just switch to a higher protein feed, around 20%. You also need to add grit in the run if it's going to be covered in snow, because the chickens still need grit, but they might not be able to get to it. We just started using a new feed last summer. Up to this point, they've eaten a lot less of this feed than they normally would a commercial bagged feed that we got at the farm store. The feed is really nutrient dense and they don't waste very much either. It's really been great for us. However, now that they're molting, they are eating a lot more, but that makes me feel pretty good because that means it's meeting their needs. Just know that you may need to increase your protein and maybe even a little bit more energy for them to complete their molt successfully. Now, water. Water, 10 years ago, we would have said water is the worst chicken chore ever in the winter. It's just like, it's frozen poop water. It's just a problem. If you have a heated water, that's great. Just make sure your cord is in a good place and protected. Since we don't have power, heated waters are not an option. In the summers, we had switched to nipple waters, but they tend to freeze up pretty quickly. Since then, we have found a method that works really well and allows us to use the nipple waters all year. No more poop water. Like I've mentioned with other animals, chickens can also be trained to get a good drink in the morning. We put the water in the run in the morning, then take it out and dump it in the evening. That way it doesn't freeze solid and we can fill it back up the next morning. If it's really cold, we'll bring it inside to keep it warm and put warm water in it in the morning before we take it out to the chickens. This has really simplified winter water around here. Another tip to keep chickens hydrated is you can put scratch grains in hot water, and sometimes I use milk, not often, but sometimes I use raw milk when I have it. This was an old farm tale that a friend told us his grandma did to keep the hens laying longer, and we found that if we started it in the fall, the hens did keep laying a little bit longer. So what we do is we'd use a dog bowl, like a stainless steel dog bowl, and put about a quarter cup of scratch grains in the bottom and then cover it with an inch of warm water. Basically, while they're searching for the grains, they drink the water or sometimes the raw milk, and it helps keep them hydrated. While we're on the subject of molt and not laying, let's talk about that winter egg drought. How to avoid it and what to do. Our strategy is to get a third of the number of hens we need in new chicks each year. Those new chicks will lay through the first winter and not molt if you get them just a little later than normal. For us, that's around April, about the time the farm stores are done carrying chicks. We get less eggs, but less is better than none. In that same process, you can cull your older third each year to keep numbers under control. The reason I use a third as a number is most layers start dropping off in production after their third year. So every 3 years in this model, you completely replace your flock with younger birds. Other options for winter eggs is to store eggs during the summer surplus. Our favorite way to do that is to freeze dry them. Now, clearly where we're at now, we do not have the power to run the freeze dryer. Hopefully we will have that again soon, but that freeze drying eggs is fantastic. You can also freeze eggs. I'm not a huge fan of the texture, so I don't do that very often. I believe the best way to do that is to slightly scramble the egg and then freeze it. You can also water glass eggs. This is another one I've not done because I don't have a good place to store them right now, but I'll definitely try it when I have better food storage space where they won't freeze or get too hot. I'm very much looking forward to a pantry and root cellar. Can you tell? I hope this helps you prepare your coop and chickens for a comfortable, stress-free winter. If you have any questions, come on over to the community and start a conversation. You can find the free community at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.